So because your daughters are largely safe, because your wives are largely safe, your grandmothers and your mothers, your female cousins and your aunties, because they're largely safe, you are telling yourselves that, black girls, I'm sorry that you're being knocked out like dominoes, and I'm sorry that your men feel entitled to your bodies by force. I'm sorry that occult practitioners out here be severing the heads of your children right in your rooms. I apologize, I'm sorry. But if I try to intervene, I could die. I really don't want to get my hands grubby. Well, this is what I gotta say as a black person, as Mordecai, tantamount equivalent, as a Jew that's facing genocide, tantamount equivalent. Help for Christians, help for women suffering, help for South African, writhing souls, help for the black communities worth of comprehensively abandoned black women is gonna come from some other place, if not from you. But when we get rescued, in spite of your complacency, you are just going to be seen as another enemy. Even though this time around, unlike in the days of apartheid, you were largely kind of standoffish. You did not actually afflict the black man or the black woman. You just stood back and watched black people finish each other off. Just like Esther, she would have just stood back and done nothing to prevent the genocide of the Jews. So when then justice comes, everyone that was just sitting there thinking they can continue to eat papaya for the next 15 days with no ramifications of what's going on in Soweto, Khayelitsha, Gugulethu, I could go on. In corporate South Africa, where black women are ripped careers from underneath their feet, where we can't breathe, where we're insisted upon by Korobela junkies, men who say, I'm going to take you no matter what, a man that can call in a favor with your CEO to get you fired, call in a favor with YouTube to ascertain that you can't get anywhere, making sure that you will sleep with me, or else you will sleep with me. Bullies outside primary schools where little girls that can't fend for themselves have got to create little holes in fences in order for them to escape a bully boy. That frankly, in the climate of the right power, will flounder, will shake just like that little beast. When my cousin told him, leave my little cousins alone, or next time I'm gonna come with 5 people that are my size, and you're all little scrawny teenage boys, I will mow you to the ground. When the right power comes and deals with an idiot, that idiot won't even fight you. Do you understand? They will just disappear. That idiot will just disappear. When the right power comes into the room, all of a sudden, the dynamics of this strange, abusing, persecuting entity will be eliminated. They will be fizzled away. This here, basically white folk and Indian folk, basically the rest of South Africa, it's a power dynamic. It's a wealth dynamic. Your country's majority black, so long story short, you can't afford to ignore black people, because then if they implode, you crash. It's just the way that the things are. We are too much of a majority for you to ignore us. And the majority of the country's wealth is frankly not in the black community. These are power structures. We understand that with the wealth that they have, they can bully us in the black community. But they're not the be-all and end-all of the strength, and they don't have the majority of the wealth. Even if they run the government, even if they are the president, even if they are the majority of the municipal councillors and blah blah blah, even behind these government officials campaigning behind them at election time are white companies, white wealth, white moguls, tycoons, samaho are behind our president. So what I'm trying to explain is that unless you want to go back to Europe because black people destroyed the country, you will stop standing back and watching black people kill black women. You will stop letting us get finished off because you're tired of watching black defeatism from a distance and hoping that something's gonna give. Because eventually you will regain power if you just ignore enough black people long enough. That might work in Europe because you're the majority there. But you can't ignore a country that's got a majority of one particular demographic. You can't ignore that demographic. You can't. Without in and of yourself caving in and imploding. South Africa is kept aloft and buoyant by a very defeatist conglomerate of one demographic. Black people. We are the skeleton of the country alongside some of its muscles. Without us, you're just a bag of organs that can't walk. Without us, you're just a bag of what do you call this? You're a multicellular organism that is without a vertebra. You have nothing. We are the backbone of this country, and you can't afford for us to be killed off so violently. You can't afford for us to just be blown away like the chaff like that. Like these men, abatwele, I don't even know what makes them think that they have to acquire wealth through such a satanic means, because white people didn't have to. Just the fact that they think it's okay for them to just give their aunts and their uncles and their children, just for them to think it's okay and just to like in a ritual so they can make money. I don't I'm sorry, I literally apologize. They just so easy. They easily just kill each other. Like, it's so easy. It is so easy. Mabizo, the names of sisters, brothers, cousins, colleagues, and human sacrifice rituals like it's a lottery, like pulling out a name out of a hat, a draw. Today Karabo can die. Karabo today can die. Karabo Refile can die. Karabo Temba can die. All it takes for them to commit broad daylight murder and robbery is for them to just feel some kind of way about the success of another black person on the left and on the right of them. It's so easy for them to cast Gorobela spells on women, and when these women still don't want to be with them, to then say, "I Suga, nobody says no to me, so they gotta die." Their Gorobela spells deteriorate to murder very quickly. I don't doubt that white people do love spells against each other, trying to cause Paul to fall in love with Cassandra by force. But I seriously doubt that Cassandra, upon Paul refusing anyway to be with her, would then deteriorate to murder afterwards. It's black men that decide that women gotta die when we don't want to be with them. They literally hook up a death spell because you don't want to be with them. Why? In a country full of those people that you're happy to live that you're happy to gaze at your large, vast plot of land in Cape Town, why would you be okay in the destruction of the skeletal structure of your country when they do that to each other? It's your country. I would understand if you were so careless about Africa that you would want to go. Like, you literally are holding on to it for dear life. You're fighting for your right to be here as non-blacks, and yet loving this country like it's your own, which it is really, because you were born here, you're citizens, but you have roots somewhere else. You don't want to fight to keep it going. You don't care when a fight is breaking out. You don't care about all these conflicts. You don't care about the fact that there's unrest in certain places. Like, our pain is so exquisite as black women that you would much rather close your curtains and not have to look at the suffering of black women rather than do anything about it. Like, you just close your curtains. At some point somebody's going to shoot a hole into your own backyard. Somebody's going to bulldoze your house. It's only a matter of time. After all, you do live in Santon, right next to Alex, where all this chaos is happening. It's going to seep into your communities. It's only a matter of time. This is the kind of stuff that historically is proven to bring about a revolution. It's literally like the French Revolution. It tends to bring about a civil uprising. But a gentle answer stays away wrath. Appropriate recovery and response to injustice heals. When the unjustly treated are given some kind of amnesty or grace or mercy, they don't tend to get to brew and stew until they want to bulldoze your house. You see, war criminals will keep doing what war criminals do. They will keep raping women because no police station is open during a war. They will keep on looting houses because no police station is open during a war. They will keep on kidnapping children and making them child soldiers because, like I said, no police station is operating during a war. There's no due process. There is nobody coming for black people, especially black women, and especially neglected, abandoned, untrained, and uninspired black children that aren't given the right foundation to know how to act in the climate of so much disregard of their persons. If nobody is coming for these people, all they can become is bitter. We have got too much emotion, having been created by a holy God that gave us all this emotion as a shock absorber or an alarm. Like, our bodies warn us when we are not okay. We cry, therefore. We bleed. We have headaches. We have, we have got a sense of foreboding, intuition, to know that something is wrong. We have all that stuff that which every human being has in them. But with us, we are told suppress it, ignore it, and you don't hold fast to all that passion and do nothing about it, and not eventually pop. So, when you ignore a people who have all those passions inside them, however completely ignored, you are asking for the powder cake pop-in of civil war. If you don't appease the pain of the black woman, everybody else that's not black, there will be a pop in the country because there is too much passion in a human being to perpetually just ignore them without something giving. If you as a person, upon being that severely ignored for that long, would pop, why would you expect black women not to snap and pop? And why would you expect kids not to turn soldier, gangster? Why would you expect, exactly, like I said, I am all, the black economic empowerment thing, I've already spoken about it. It needs to be abolished, repealed. Why? Because black people are the ones that are regressing the statistics of what BEE is doing. They are like ones who have got one entry point of a water source coming into a bucket, one tap, but there are 20 perforations in the bucket, making it impossible to fill that bucket to the brim. There are 20 perforations in the bucket, making it impossible to fill that bucket to the brim. And so, with there being all those holes in the bucket, anybody at all that's basically waiting for this bucket to fill to the brim of itself so that other buckets can start to be filled, so that the nation's resources can start to be invested in other things other than freaking black economic empowerment. Those who are waiting for that bucket to be filled are going to end up upset at the fact that water keeps getting poured into the bucket at all. Hence why a whole bunch of white folk can't stand BE anymore, where before they were cool with it. It's because they are making an observation of the defeatism of the black community, who keep on like shooting holes into their own buckets and then pouring a whole bunch of water on top. They're wasteful, man. They're wasteful. And so, Minanami, if I was Umlungi, I would riot. I would complain. I would develop a hostile sentiment against the black government. But you see, when they develop a hostile sentiment, they're automatically assumed as racist. So what do? So that they don't get labeled as racist, they just stand back and do nothing. They go mum. They put duct tape on their mouths. They say nothing and just do nothing as well. But they're like Esther, you see. Help for the Jews is going to come from some other places, not from you. The person that is shooting holes into the bucket is just 1 or 2 or 5 people, and the power dynamics are such that there are others more powerful than them. Money in this country is not in the hands of black people. It's just not. It's not. It's supposed to be because it's Africa, but unfortunately, well, the most of the wealth of the country is in white hands, followed by Indian hands. Gunjalo nje. So why are these more powerful people who have made observations of the crazy in the black community now salvaging basically the refugees of the black community? Why are you not salvaging the bereft, war-ravaged civilians of South Africa against war criminals of South Africa? Why is there no rescue effort of black South Africa from crazy blacks in South Africa? You know who they are because they're brazen. They are overt. They don't hide that they have brought a docket, that they're completely guilty, but they're walking. They have got blood on their hands. Their victims are often observably and provably innocent, and they are observably and provably prosecutable, and yet they are walking. It's not like they're so concealed behind closed doors that you can't see them. And when then you can tell who here is a corrupt son of a gun that's destroying the lives of 50 people as just one man. Why is nobody trying to take this bugger out? That's just my thing. Why is nobody trying to assassinate these people? Like, they gotta go. Why is nobody trying to put them in prison, raise up charges, an indictment of sorts against them? Why are people just standing back and doing nothing about corrupt black people that run the country, that run corporate South Africa, that run everything all over the show, and they have put other black people at their mercy? They have decided who finishes school, who gets into school, who doesn't. They've decided what they're going to marry, who they're going to marry, how many times they're going to marry. They have told women, you're going to be my wife no matter what. They have, guys, they are, like I said, war criminals. They take what they want. And when you don't want to agree with them, when you don't want to settle, they kill you. And they've got so many psycho fans in the black community because the black community is so scared of them that the black community is not about to intervene on behalf of their victims. They just stand back. They are like gangsters terrorizing a community. There's only a few of them, but they've got guns in a way that civilians in the community don't. So they just ride out all this crazy insanity and do nothing because they don't want to get hurt. But you see, with every gangster, there's always some bigger gangster. There's always some bigger mafia boss that can tell them, stop terrorizing this particular village. We're done. And they just have to leave. There's always somebody much bigger than the guy who thinks that he is big. There's always. And in this country, white people, you literally have got more power than some of these black tycoons that are obviously corrupt. Look at Under Heaven what they have done to Eskom. Look at what they have done. As a result, therefore, to the electrical infrastructure, so on gas and electricity, we all are in load shedding, are we not? Black government largely that has done that. Corruption indeed inside Eskom was from some white people, etc. But largely the biggest contributors to the corruption in the country have been black people. Your countries are reeling. It's not enough that you've got solar panels. It's that without electricity coming back to this country, the whole economy dies. And when that's a thing, who's gonna buy your damn wine? Who is going to till your fields? Who is going to run your businesses? You are gonna have to lay off staff in and of yourselves. You're going to have to declare losses. Do you understand? You're gonna have to leave the country when violence gets too extreme. I mean, look at the lootings that happened in KZN not so long ago. Did they not cause Indian people to move back to India or Australia or whatever? They literally applied for citizenship to live somewhere else. They left Durban. They left KZN because it was too much to take in one stride. When black people are left to just do what they want to do, y'all, you gonna go back to your continents. Do you understand? Not when they're doing it in Africa. There's too many of them for you to be safe in complacency. So, as for the black woman, you see this discussion that I'm having. If I were to be given a platform with this speech that I've been doing all day in Zekibua, Momo computing in my phone, if I were to give this speech with an audience of 1 million viewers on YouTube, 1 million on Facebook, 1 million on Twitter, 1 million on TikTok. I would probably cause the repentance of a whole bunch of white people from their complacency. I would cause the repentance of a whole bunch of Indian people from their complacency. I'm powerful enough to cause even the repentance of these black tycoons that are destroying the country from their complacency. I would also likely inspire the fearful, the scared, the intimidated, the therefore timidly cowering away from doing anything about the menacing psychopathy of the spiritual black conglomerate that are using magic power to terrorize the black community. I would cause them to be emboldened to finally stand. The work that I do, I would give them counsel, advice that they would take, and they would uproot these issues. Essentially, the very thing that I'm saying right now, that the Bible says that if the people of God, called by his name, humble themselves and pray and repent from their wicked ways, the Lord will turn his wrath from that land and heal their land. They would hearken to me, they would listen, they would take the advice I give in my content. They would start fasting and they would start praying. And the uprooting of these P. Diddy's, these Sean Combs of the black community would just happen like that, dominoes. The powerful everywhere else would bring them low. Their sycophants would refuse to continue to kiss their behinds. The more powerful among the white conglomerate and the Indian conglomerate in this country would choose to now finally do what is right instead of literally keep every man to themselves. Their little Cain mindset where they're saying, am I my brother's keeper? They'd stop saying that. And so, a whole bunch of arrests would be made. People would down tools on their magic wands and repent. And communities would pray. And so therefore, instead of coming up with strategies to run away from Kefas, escaping through little holes in the school fence, they would, as a conglomerate of primary school kids, understand Kefas is huge, right? To a bunch of primary school kids, to one primary school child, or maybe 2, 3, maybe 5. Kefas is gargantuan to 5 primary school girls. He's huge, he's tall, he's this like statue, this graven image. He's hard to tackle. And he's so strong with his 5 crew of boys or 7 crew of boys that maybe even 10 primary school kids might struggle with him. But if the whole primary school of these 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-year-olds, 11-year-olds, 12-year-olds, 13-year-olds, if they decided that enough is enough, nja, you're not going to terrorize our primary school anymore, and they decided to basically up weapons themselves and stone this guy. If they decided to throw stones at Kefas every day after school when he's standing outside of the school, because after all, he didn't carry a weapon, right? You all know that. He didn't carry a knife. Kefas did not carry a gun. He just carried his big body, his teenage body, and his intimidation tactic against primary school kids. All that Kefas had was the fact that people were running on nothing but fear. So if these kids walked out of school every day, each one of them make like David and pick up one shiny stone from the floor, just one. If every last one of them upon walking out of school carried a stone on some, literally, when I exit, I will throw a stone at that crew of little gangster boys sitting in a corner. And my one stone might cause irritation in him and maybe cause him to charge me. But if he decides to charge me with his 5 friends, the rest of us are going to use our little shiny stones. These buggers that keep on getting stoned by primary school kids, like literally, never mind stoned. All they need is to have primary school kids walk out of school every day with a stone and just let them know that if you dare come close to any one of these girls, these yellow bones, we got a stone, and just me along with the stone might indeed have tomorrow you find me and handle me kari washing. But 10 stones, RIP, Baga, you're not gonna make it to tomorrow. 20 stones, 30 stones, Baga, you're gonna die. You're gonna die. And once you're dead, the police are not gonna arrest 300 kids from a primary school. Your case is gonna go cold. Your mom will bury you by yourself. You'll have 5 people at your funeral because you're a menace to society. Nobody will care that you're gone. It'll be good riddance because that's just the nature of vigilantism. If at all I was given a platform to speak to 1 million people, maybe we could stone Kefas, or we could threaten him with stones and he will just choose not to get stoned and leave. But you see, the sad thing is that Kefas, yeah, he set his eyes on me just like he set his eyes on my cousin when we were kids, and he's got power. So he has isolated me. He has made sure that my YouTube channel does not get viewed. He has made sure that I've got binary code for views. That even complacent white South Africa will still maintain a complacency where I'm concerned. They will still try to say black people will finish themselves off, not realizing that boomerang much, this thing here is going to come back to bite you in the behind. Yeah, Kefasa is trusting that nobody can hear my voice. And his sycophants are so exquisite, they're so very many, and they are so dumb that despite having access to my content, like the woman that this guy has paid at YouTube to sit on my content, listens to it. The woman that has taken away my advanced features at YouTube as a result of this bribery, the woman that has shadow banned my content, and the people that he called across this social media space to basically make sure my content goes nowhere so he can have sex one day. Yeah. Some of them listen to me every day because if a powerful man is going to be paying you a whole bunch of money to silence this content creator, some people out of curiosity will just sit outside of this person's life and listen to them. Like, he brought attention to my content by simply asking that I be shadow banned, like by simply paying this volume of money to his connections in these social media places. He caused people that were just administrating in the back end. He caused people that would never have looked at me to suddenly start listening to me because we know this guy. He is freaking powerful. And yet he is insisting that this no-brainer 40-year-old lackluster YouTube lady with like -7 subscribers be silenced, that no one can ever hear her content. This guy has paid us this much in dollars to silence this woman with only, like I said, -22 subscribers. She barely has anybody listening to her. Binary code. Some videos have no views at all. And here's this little animal paying us how much to cause her to be ignored by everyone. I want to see why. Just by mere virtue of paying this like loud bribe, people have developed a curiosity around my content. So powerful a man would focus on such a lackluster woman. She's no one. She's poor. She has no money. And these people are sitting outside of my ministry, listening to every video I upload. And if I tell you, the word of the Lord is living and active, sharper than a double-edged sword, able to separate between bone and marrow, soul and spirit. You cannot prophesy and speak the words of life and come in the name of heaven in front of a people for an extended period of time as a prisoner and not cause one of them to twitch and not cause one of them to glitch. This little idiot has made people look at me. And in so looking at me, some of them are scared out of their minds. But you know, like I said, psychophants. They are sucking up, they're kissing behind, and not only are they kissing behind, they hope that the tycoony nature of this man, the power of this buffoon, this beast, this puff daddy, this miscreant of a monolithic, mammoth, ugly thing, this satanic monster, they think that that power that he has is going to protect them, even though they have a severity of conviction that this here is wrong. And the stuff that this woman is speaking is the stuff of international and national importance. But they're just pressing a button every day. They're just pressing a button every single day. They're just pressing a button every day. They are maintaining a shadow banned channel, shadow banned with them only having access to listening to me. Only they hear what I have to say every day. And the words that I speak are so, like, earth-shattering. They're so earthquakey. They're so seismic in their activity that some of them are glitching and they're twitching and they're crying, but they feel like they gotta protect this monster. Yeah. If I had 1 million people to speak to, seeing as I am out here convicting, however, with very limited response to their conviction, they're not repenting. They're just scared. They're scared, but they're not repenting. They're scared. If at all I could make his sycophants scared of me, how much more could I transform a country? How much more could I convince a white person to stop being racist against blacks because he's upset at how defeatist they are, and see that this here is not an isolated incident, but it's literally a few people causing a bad name for the majority. The black community is being terrorized by men, especially men, but women too, into occult magic. And some of them are so powerful that they run the country, they're in the government, and also they run corporate. They have got the wealth, and they have won or acquired everything that they acquired through this method so much that they're coercive to people who don't appropriately respond to it. They have made war in a Christian country against Christianity. They have made war in a nation that is largely sort of kind of okay with the Jesus thing. Yeah, they have made war with Jesus in a Jesus country. They have determined to exsanguinate Christianity from the floor of South Africa. They actively kill Christians. They dedicate their covens to the decimation of the church in a country that is still trying to hold on to Christian Judeo principles. They're killing your prophets, they're killing your priests, they're killing your evangelists, they're killing content creators on social media that are trying to give the gospel. They are giving favor to those who have made South Africa a dark country with no electricity. They're giving favor to those who have made South Africa an unskilled nation with lackluster quality skill in whatever spheres of society that that we are at, because they have chosen to rather place each other in positions of honor instead of really truly skilled people. And when you mess with the true skill level of a country, you mess with the economic success of that country and its prosperity in proliferating whatever agendas it is trying to proliferate. You need smart people, and you also need the best of people out here trying to shift the paradigms of your country. In order to lead the nation from one place to another, you need really clever people. So basically, these individuals are state capturers. They are cooing the country that you have come to love, on which you own a farm winelands. Yeah, they are the reason why there's looting all over the show. They are the reason why company executives have got to feed their creative teams drugs to get them to innovate, because the creatives are sitting at home like Karabo gathering dust. I told you that story the other day of one of my mom's friend's kids having a drug addiction because he was fed drugs by the executive of his company, because apparently, allegedly, drugs is what it is that was needed for them to innovate. That's what's going on down in these streets. Your country is being unraveled one stitch at a time. But it is being unraveled by a handful of people that, however, hold quite a vast amount of wealth in the black community, and they are terrorizing the one community that makes up the majority of your country. Your complacency is homicidal. It is suicidal. It's a kamikaze mission. It's not going to do anything for you. We are dealing with a K-fuss over here. Do you understand? These men and women are like K-fuss, bewitching all of South Africa into obscurity. In the black community, there is a circus of witches that are just ripping coppers from underneath people's feet, and this circus of witches would frankly be defeatable. In every era, there will always be a circus of witches. In every era and every generation, there will always be a circus of witches, okay? Witchcraft is easily conquered and overcome by prayer and consecration to Jesus Christ. Demons flee in the presence of Jesus Christ. So just the fact that they practice witchcraft is not the problem here. The issue is that they hold power. And with this power, they can pull strings to essentially function as barriers to entry against people. My channel is not blocked by witchcraft. It's blocked by a button that has been pressed at YouTube by someone that, absent of releasing their ugly grubby paws from that button, I will never gain any new subscribers but for a miracle of God. I will never gain any views but for a miracle of God. I will literally just stay stagnant and frozen in one position. It is sabotage. I am so prayerful, praying all night long. Do you understand? In tongues, top of that, I'm always fasting. I've been in a fast for like 2.5 months non-stop. It's just my life. So at this point, every last satanic entity, every last demon is burned to a crisp, okay? It's charred in a corner. It's pulverized into a fine powder. There's nothing that can survive the climate of prayer that I live in 24 hours a day. But guess what continues to stand and walk these streets? In spite of demons being pulverized to a fine powder, crazy people that are holding on to their guns. Like Pharaoh in Egypt, holding on to God's people. All of these demons got pulverized. We all know what happened to the snakes of these sorcerers and magicians. They were eaten by the snake of the staff of Moses and Aaron. They were engulfed by red waters of blood. Engulfed by froggies. A cornucopia of locusts. A swarm. Out here eating at their crop, animals dying. And yet Pharaoh, a human being. So basically demons dropping like dominoes. Angels in heaven ransacking the spiritual ecosystem. But people being like, they're my workforce. I'm not going to let them go. We're dealing with mere mortals here who have no regard for the effective, fervent prayer of a righteous man that avails much. But just like with Pharaoh, their hearts are hardened. So their sons can be killed, their children can be killed. And so they, after their firstborn children get killed, can in and of themselves just kind of perish in the Red Sea. They stay stubborn, holding on to a people that have prayed away their... They stay stubborn, holding on to a people that have prayed away their demons. While the God has planned a nice little casket for them, a watery grave. But at what point does that watery grave come? That is my point, South Africa. The watery grave of Pharaoh and his men, his soldiers, comes after the destruction of Egypt. Are you catching? Plagues fall. Your firstborn children die. Then only these sycophant-having freaks of nature that keep on bewitching all of South Africa. Then only do they get engulfed by the Red Sea. So do you see, they're on a kamikaze mission, like proper suicide vests out here in these streets, bombing a restaurant, killing everybody in there and themselves. They're killing South Africa. Like I said, the country is like a fishy outside of the ocean, flapping, about to breathe its last. And nobody is taking this little fishy and throwing it back in the ocean. The country will die first before God will allow the death of his Christians, his children, his sensibility in the land. The Lord will extract Noah, Daniel, and Job, but he will kill all of you. So yet again, Esther of South Africa, help for me is coming from some other place if not from you. But when it comes, your firstborn children will be dead. Blood waters will have been all you had for drink. You will have had 3 days of darkness. You will have had a swarm of locusts. You will have had animals die on you. You will have had a whole bunch, a cornucopia of frogs hopping all up in your grill. You will have had signs and wonders of your stuff being eaten by the staff of Karabo. You will have watched miracles on Mount Carmel be performed and still maintain the stubbornness just going. You will then only, once you are nice and emptied as a country, finally hear of the funerals of these miscreants. You will finally hear of the death of these tycoons that had to die. You will finally hear of the arrest of P. Diddy. You will finally hear in the pipelines and the grapevines or whatever of the comprehensive destruction of the men and women who destroyed your country, had it for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, but you were complacent and did nothing, so I guess you gotta lose your firstborn children. There are consequences to sitting around and doing nothing. Help for the Jews will come from some other place, if not from you. And when it comes, you will also be met with a plague that's going to hit the enemies of God. But who knows if you've not been put in a position of this nature for such a time as this. Listen. In the case of Purim, in the case of Esther, right? The story of Esther in the Bible. Esther did intervene, and her husband Xerxes, who was a Persian king, a pagan king, therefore, was spared. Esther, Xerxes, and all of Iran, ancient Iran, modern day Iran, ancient Persia. The whole country was salvaged. The only thing that died was the perpetrator and his family. The only thing that died was the pest in the hair, the tick in the hair, the parasite. The only thing that died was that little monster Haman. Not only that, God's people were given weaponry and a right to fight their own battles if people wanted to displace them. And so people stood back and said, no, we're not going to fight the Jews because the king has hooked up an edict saying, if at all anybody comes for you, you have a right to fight for yourself. And so a lot of people chose not to fight them. They chose not to carry on with their anti-Semitism. So Iran was spared because Esther intervened. That's the case between immediate action. Difference between immediate action when warned that if you don't do anything there's going to be a plague versus delayed action. Pharaoh walked in delayed action, whereas Esther walked in immediate action. The immediate action of Esther stayed the sword from all of Persia, whereas the delayed reaction of Pharaoh brought the sword on all of Egypt. Your country is dying, South Africa, from your delayed reaction. But in both cases, the people of God were saved. In the case of Purim, the Jews were maintained in Persia. And in the case of the Exodus, in the case of Moses' people, in the case of the Hebrews in Egypt, God's people only survived. So I mean, really here, what is the best outcome for us all here? It is to make like Esther. That is the amicable solution. Absent of walking in an amicable solution of which, if at all we reach an impasse, Egypt gets engulfed, but God's people get spared. So help for Karabo is going to come from some other place, if not from all of y'all. But when it comes, you will fall with your deadbeat South Africa. But who knows? If you have not been salvaged and put in the king's palace for such a time as this. What I'm getting at here is that I'm not scared of Kephas, you see. Because I belong to the Ancient of Days. I belong to the one who sends me help, whether or not you feel interested or intrigued even in the slightest to do anything. Whether or not or you are actively trying to see if you can't pull in a favor for Karabo. Bottom line is, I'm gonna get salvaged with or without you. All these Korobela monsters that want to take me by force, expecting me to cut my losses, expecting me to grovel at their feet. Hey, they want me to apologize for what? I don't know. And they think my funeral is up and coming like a new movie. They thoroughly imagine I'm dying. They do. But so too did Haman think Mordecai was about to die. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So too did the satraps and administrators anticipate that we are about to have a funeral for Daniel. Yeah. So too did the soldiers around the fire of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego think that they're going to be, picking up the ashes of these people and throwing them into the ocean or whatever. They always think that we're dying until it's them that are out here having some crazy widows out here mourning, all bereaved, gaditoko, lididete, le mekolo, balalabana that had to die. They had to go. They had to be they had to die. Batong widow. Kuparibuwe ulalang muna haw. O sentse maphelo a batho ba 79. O bolaile di family tsa hae tse 4. Unzali busy mo akwala di minyako for some innocent intern in the office o haneng go bala le yena o lelang. Lwana ke ka tla pating re lo celebrate taba gore ntja ya hawe tlhokafetse because that's what it was a dog. It had to die. Their widows are going to be mourning in a way that's going to cause people to crease their foreheads because like don't you see that this thing had to go? Yeah, Haman was out here planning Mordecai's death and he was hung at the very gallows that he set apart for Mordecai. It's swinging like a pendulum on a noose. Oh, look at that. And yet that was my noose. I've got a cemetery, a grave open, dug up and everything at West Park Cemetery. But he's gonna hop in there. Just like the satraps and administrators are the ones that went into that lion's den. They have set apart my funeral and everything. They've come up with speeches, a funeral wreath, flowers. An obituary in the newspaper is already written in the future. But all the details of who passed away, the blank space, their name is going there. But hey, like I said, they'd already made funeral arrangements. Help for the Jews will come from some other place if not from you. And when it comes with them, you will enter the casket. But who knows if you've not been put in this position for such a time as this. I'm trying to explain, black women, I'm getting to this particular point. We get that the world ignores us. We get that we can cry in police stations and everybody be like, police station. We cry when when rape kits are being done. We're being told, ish, just relax, you're about to see a shrink. A shrink. We just keep getting told to stop crying, alright? Even though our tears and this passion is God's shock absorber to sorrow. And when we can't employ the shock absorber, we just stew and brew until we pop. Yeah, I'm inviting you to get on your sides, black women. A God that can turn the tables on a stubborn pharaoh, that insists that your tears don't matter, and that is prepared to go and literally squander the resources of a nation, lay it waste, cause all of his crop to get consumed by locusts before he will let the people of God go, but not first before causing the death of your firstborn child. Those are your kings. That's the issues with your stubborn, menacing, twellified beasts that gotta die, with widows that are gonna be crying crocodile tears because this little idiot had to die. That's what I'm saying. That's what you're facing. You've got a Kephasi. He is a child. However, there are more childy children in the room that make him feel emboldened to carry on doing what under heaven it is that he is doing in these streets. So he bullies you because you're more childy as a child, even though in and of himself he's a child. Black folk, you've been kept in childlike state. Do you understand? Black women have been ignored comprehensively. We cry and nobody comes to us. We can't therefore nurture our children. We can't take care of wounded soldiers because we are so freaking ignored. We are angry all the time, blowing steam on rooftops with everybody having no regard for our case. We are able to overwhelm monolithic structures, but everybody keeps on out here mumming our voices. We've got men who feel entitled to our bodies, keep on slapping us, they then kill us. That's what in the under heaven is going on over here. As able to reach as we are, we nonetheless are smothered in our voices. And so granted that we are as smothered in our voices as we are, I guess when we keep on talking to only 2 people in the room, all we can tell them is help for the Jews is coming from some other place if not from you. And when it comes, you're gonna die too. But who knows if you've not been put in this position for such a time as this. We understand you are prolific psychopaths. We understand you feel entitled to the bodies of virgin girls in primary school as a teenage boy that's dropped out of school. We understand, okay fuss, that you can intimidate some kids until they take you long dry to go home. Scared to tell their parents because don't nobody care about the black kids' laments, right? But eventually God is the one that raises up a standard against a wicked man and a wicked woman, a wicked force in the city that is intimidating some children. He says, suffer the little children to come to me. He says that if anybody causes these little children of his to sin, it'll be better for millstone would tie around their neck and for them to be thrown in the ocean. The Lord has a bone to pick with people who are to be trying to take the virtue of children. And that's what that little monster was doing back in the day when we was just like 13, not like 10. Under 10. So even though our own community was not reliable, even though this guy was able to wreak havoc, God, long story short, caused a chain of events providentially such that we would get found wanting, busted, walking, using some strange long dry on the other side of town. Yeah. And our domestic worker find us, yell at us because that's what black people get done to. Every time you complain as a black woman after being raped, you are asked, Wenzeni, right? We get yelled at. We get finger pointed. Whenever we raise an issue, everybody listens to our stories like it's a sob freaking story. Nobody believes us. No one believes us. And that's how it was with the domestic worker. Let's okay. And we cried and cried until finally she sat down and listened. And when then she actually listened to the details of why we are taking a long dry, it then dawned on her that, whoa. There is danger. And so it took us home, and while expecting to still be yelled at by Granny, pleasantly got surprised by an intervention through a big beefy cousin that intimidated Kefas until he disappeared. What I'm trying to explain is that I rock up here every single day to a people who think I'm giving a sob freaking story. Like, some people even think that I'm making up these details of my life. They think I am fabricating content. They think that I am just super innovative and I am looking for donations or whatever crap they think. They listen to me with the half-hearted insincerity, the way that black kids always get listened to with a half-hearted sincerity. Kids that out to be walking go downtown Joburg at just the age of 7, with nobody having wonderment in their minds as to why is a child in the middle of downtown Joburg by themselves. Nobody's here for the black kid, but thank God he does not care for black, pink, purple, white, or yellow. The Lord is like all a one in me. He takes up the cause of the widow and the orphan, whether or not it is an orphan that most people are prepared to ignore. Hey? Black babies are the least adopted in this world than any other single type of baby, type establishment thing. Everybody be out there ignoring the black anything. It's okay, it's alright, because the Lord is the father to the fatherless. He does not care about the inefficiencies and the inequalities of an earth that does not care for black women crying. He gave us tears to cry, and he has a bone to pick with the fact that the tears of black women get ignored. He has a controversy to pick with that. A gargantuan controversy. He has issues with the fact that people have no regard for the keledi, tabanyana, babatu, babantu. He cares for them. So much so does the Lord care for tears that he gathers them in a jar in heaven. And yet here it is that the world thinks that they can ignore us and God will too ignore them. Ignore us, sorry. Because, I mean, really, you know, safety in numbers. If she's being ignored, then clearly there's something ignorable. When you get underestimated because there is something about you underestimatable, when people aren't listening to you, most people will imagine by perception management alone. Behavioral psychology will have it such that people will tend to ignore you if you are ignored. They will abuse you if you are abused. They will disregard you if you're disregarded. And they will accuse you if you are accused. It's unfortunate. That's the way that the human race operates. And black girls are ignored, accused, abused, and disregarded. So the world abuses us, accuses us, disregards us, and ignores us. Thank God he does not care for the indiscretion of behavioral psychology that will walk right by a suffering woman just because everybody else is walking right by a suffering woman. I am gonna fight and I'm gonna win for no other reason than the fact that if he be for me, can't nobody be against me. I am going to win because at some point, a crying kid, even in the black community, gets hearkened to. At some point, somebody will stop and put their ear to the ground and realize that kids are in danger of rape. Even if largely, when we come home, that's how it is. That's how it was when we grew up. When we came home crying, our grandfather would sometimes whip us to give us a reason to cry. Now you can cry because can't cry, can't complain. This time around you be coming home because you've been molested, ransacked, handled, hit, bullied. Be strong. That's what we are told. Just be strong. Yeah. Well, the day comes when God raises up someone that is going to listen to somebody that largely most people would be like, just be strong. And they will listen to it closely and realize that a woman's life is in freaking danger every single day. Eventually, somebody will realize that children are in danger. We're facing a case of rape here. Mtanetu is going to have their virginity broken by some 15-year-old beast. And she's not even 10. The domestic worker found that out because God raised her up. None of us were saved at the time. No one was godly. But you see, God always takes up the cause of the widow and the orphan, whether or not they're born again. Because that's what true religion means for. Lord is a practicer of what he preaches. He says true religion is to take care of the widow and of the orphan, whether or not they're born again. God takes care of people by his common grace, whether or not they're born again. Do you understand? We were not yet saved, not truly anyway. We used to go to church on Sundays, but really, whatever, it was fluffy. We were insincere. But the Lord saw that rape was coming to the family. He saw. The Lord saw that trauma, withdrawal, was going to come to a little girl that was going to be made to walk home with a 15-year-old boy that was going to have sex with her. God saw it. And all of us were the initial buffers. Because we all took a long try as a scheme. Sarangani walking back home, and my cousin and I, and other of my cousins. We will take a long drive for the sake of my cousin. So the kids protected each other, like in the movie Stand By Me. But just like in the movie Stand By Me, if kids don't eventually have an adult force coming through, some kids are actually going to pass away, playing out in the wilderness, trying to have each other's backs. Kids can't raise each other. They cannot protect each other. They need elders. Do you understand? And God raised up an elder. God raised up an elder, somebody that was older than us, a 23, 24-year-old woman. Our domestic worker that put her ear to the ground and realized that uchika bana mahala. There's a reason why they are walking, taking it long gaga. They've been scared to speak. And so she raised it up with my grandmother. My grandmother raised up my cousin, who was this butch force that got rid of this menacing structure. So in the event that my unheard content, where I'm not reaching millions of people and so likely converting all of South Africa to Christ, bottom line is, somebody will come for my salvaging, with or without me having a handsome audience on YouTube. Somebody will happen upon my content, cause unazola YouTube. Just like my, who's this, cousin? Not cousin, but the helper, the domestic lady, our nanny. Megazula lo muntu, afuna ukujola nje, to get seen by boys that were gonna shella her on the street. She was just zularing as a young woman zulas in the streets of Soweto. And her zularing made her find out that there is something monolithic, gargantuan, and very devastating coming to the family. We are dealing with a repeated rape case of a 10-year-old girl. Under 10. We were not even 10 yet. I don't even think we were 10 yet. And this girl was going to be converted into a harlot, a whore of the school, with nobody knowing that she frankly was coerced but did not say anything. Because kids that get molested barely ever are just screaming when their rapists are doing what they're doing. They think that they deserve it. They think that they're bad girls if they speak out. They just go mum, and then they just withdraw afterwards. This woman zula'd the streets of Soweto, not really looking to rescue anybody, but did. She was not looking to save kids, but she did. And her initial reaction to us was, "Oh, Chikanji, little guy, why you're in the main road, you're gonna get killed. What's wrong with you?" Ultimately, when the kid burst out into tears, she listens and realizes that, like I said, something traumatic is coming to the family. What I'm trying to explain is that we get that the black girl is largely ignored, okay? We get that the black child is also largely ignored. Basically, that which makes for true religion, take care of widows and of orphans, women and children. Nothing of that nature is happening in the black community. Bottom line is, every so often there is a good Samaritan. And that good Samaritan might not even be all that good, because they come in with accusations straight away. Like I said, the black girl is largely ignored, largely accused, largely disregarded, and largely, what is the word that I am looking for? She's ignored, accused, disregarded, and you get my point. You remember, it was 4 of them. That's what the black girl is, right? So we are guilty before proven innocent. Our tears don't get hearkened to. People don't ask us what's wrong when we're crying. They assume that we're throwing our toys out the cot and are drama queens. So initially, you will be responded to with that attitude. Initially, you will be responded to with something must give. Something is up. Just like we were innocent, just trying to survive. Long dry and everything. And when then we got found on a strange street, taking a long drive to go home, we were initially yelled at until finally hearkened to. I have spent a decade, and especially the past 2.5 to 3 years, coming on YouTube, complaining against these psychopathic monsters that are rapey. These men who feel entitled to taking women, that will slap you in a korobela time and time again. Some of them of which are HIV positive, so I don't know what they want with a woman that's been chased for years. I lament and I speak against these monsters so much. I even spoke some time ago about how it is that I want them dead. I am petitioning like no man's business God, because they have blocked me on all sides, ascertained that I go nowhere. Do you understand? Have taken Umfazi that they imagine because we're not 40, she's eventually going to lay under me. They have chloroformed me and caused me to be unconscious for a season, and I disappeared from my ministry and I came back. And now they're trying to pin me to the ground and have me anyway. They want to close my mouth, they want to close my ears, and they keep on putting a gun to my head and pulling the trigger, but it keeps on jamming. I pray away their death spells. I pray away their korobela. Everything about you is and they have determined come hell or high waters. They don't care. They want me dead.